For millions of years, the story of human evolution seemed to follow a simple, forward-moving pattern. Each new species that emerged from our genus, Homo, was a step further away from our primitive past. Brains grew larger, bodies became more adapted to walking on two legs, and technology grew ever more advanced. It was a clean, linear progression from the stooped ape man to the master of the planet. But this tidy narrative, as we have come to learn, is a profound oversimplification. The story of our past is not a straight line. It is a tangled bush with many strange and forgotten branches. And in 2015, deep within a cave in South Africa, a discovery was made that tore a hole in our understanding of that story. A new species of human was found that seemed to have been dropped out of a time machine. Despite dating to a period when early Homo sapiens were already walking the earth, this creature possessed a bizarre cocktail of features that defied everything we thought we knew. It was one of the most recent human species to exist, yet it looked in many ways like one of the most ancient. It was a ghost from a deeper past, a living paradox that broke all the rules. The scientists who found it gave it a name that evoked the stars of the cavern where it was found, Homo Naledi. But it would come to be known by another, more resonant name, the Starman. This is the story of the greatest enigma in human evolution, a mystery that challenges the very definition of what it means to be human. The story of the Starman begins not in the light of the savannah, but in the crushing, absolute darkness, hundreds of feet below the South African soil. The Rising Star Cave system is a treacherous labyrinth, a place of vertical drops, tight squeezes, and passages so narrow that for decades, its deepest chambers remain untouched and unknown. In 2013, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger put out an unusual call. He needed expert cavers, but they had to be exceptionally slender. True underground astronauts, capable of navigating where no normal person could. A team of 6 women was assembled for the perilous descent. They navigated down a passage called Dragon's Back, and squeezed one by one through a fissure just 7 inches wide. What they dropped into on the other side was a chamber that had been sealed from the world for 250,000 years. In the beams of their headlamps, they saw something that no human had ever seen before. The floor of the chamber was not covered in rock or crystal, but a carpet of bones. This was no animal den. The bones were undeniably, shockingly, human, and it was not one skeleton, but a multitude. The remains of at least 15 individuals, males, females, infants, and the elderly were scattered across the chamber floor. It was a tomb, a silent congregation of the dead, and it presented a profound, immediate mystery. In a chamber this impossibly difficult to access, how did they all get here? The bodies of the Starman told a story of profound contradictions. They were exceptionally small for their time, averaging just 4 feet 9 inches tall, with slender, lightweight frames that weighed less than 90 pounds. They were ghosts in a world increasingly populated by larger, more robust hominins like ourselves and the Neanderthals. But their true strangeness lay in their anatomy, a mosaic of the ancient and the modern that baffled scientists. Their feet, legs, and even their spine were strikingly human-like, the body of a creature perfectly adapted for efficient, long-distance walking on the ground. Their hands were a similar paradox. They possessed a powerful, modern thumb and wrist morphology, ideal for the precise manipulation and strong grip needed for sophisticated tool use. Yet, this modern foundation was fused with a body that seemed to belong to a much deeper, more primitive past. Their shoulders were shaped upwards, like those of an ape, built for climbing and hanging from branches. And their fingers were long, slender, and elegantly curved, even more adapted for grasping tree limbs than our much earlier Australopithecine ancestors like Lucy. They were, impossibly, both an expert climber and an expert walker, a creature perfectly at home, both on the ground and in the trees. a combination that shouldn't exist in a hominin this recent. This paradox extended to their teeth. They were small, like ours, but possessed a thick, durable enamel and a molar shape that were archaic features, hearkening back to the earliest hominins. The extreme wear and tear on these durable teeth, full of grit and dirt, suggested a modest diet of tough, underground foods like raw tubers dug straight from the earth. The physical paradox of Homo naledi was mirrored in its mind. The brain of the Starman was tiny, with a cranial capacity of only about 500 cubic centimeters, barely half the size of our own and no larger than an orange. By all established rules of human evolution, this should imply a simple intellect, a throwback to the cognitive world of our earliest ancestors. A small brain for a long time was thought to mean a simple mind. But when scientists created digital reconstructions of the Naledi brain case, they found another shocking contradiction that challenged this core assumption. While small, the brain's structure was remarkably advanced and surprisingly modern. The overall shape, the placement of key grooves and folds, and the proportions of the lobes were miraculously alike those of later, large-brained humans like Neanderthals and ourselves. They showed a well-developed temporal lobe and a modern-looking frontal lobe, areas of the brain that in modern humans are the seats of complex social behavior, emotional processing, planning, and language. This is the ghost in the skull, the architecture of a complex mind, housed within a primitive, small-brained package. This raises a tantalizing and profound question. Was Homo naledi a genius in a small body? Was it a creature capable of complex communication, deep social bonds, and perhaps even a form of language? The brain's shape implies this potential. But the archaeological record is silent. To date, not a single stone tool or artifact of any kind has ever been found in direct association with their remains. This is perhaps the most bewildering fact of all. A cave filled with thousands of bones from a human with a tool-ready hand and a modern-looking brain, but not a single piece of their technology. We are left with only the ghost of their potential. A deep and unsettling mystery about the nature of intelligence itself. Asterisk. We must now return to the central mystery of the Rising Star Cave. How did the bodies get into that deep, impossibly remote chamber? It was not a place where they lived. There are no signs of habitation. It was not a place where they were dragged by predators. There are no tooth marks on the bones. They were not washed in by a flood. After eliminating all other possibilities, scientists were left with one astonishing, world-altering conclusion. The Naledi must have put their own dead there, on purpose. Imagine the scene. A procession of these small, strange humans, navigating a deadly vertical labyrinth in absolute, pitch-black darkness. They move with an expert climber's skill through passages that would terrify a modern human, all while carrying the bodies of their loved ones, their children, their partners, their elders. They are not just disposing of a corpse. They are on a funereal journey. This act implies a level of cooperation, abstract thought, and emotional depth that is staggering. It requires an understanding of mortality. It suggests the existence of grief, of respect for the dead, and of a shared social ritual. If this hypothesis is correct, it would represent the oldest known example of deliberate body disposal in the entire human record, predating known Neanderthal burials by 100,000 years. This was not just a burial. It was an act of incredible bravery and sophistication. It would mean that these small-brained people, these evolutionary ghosts, were capable of a level of symbolic behavior and profound humanity that we once arrogantly believed belonged only to large-brained species like ourselves. It suggests that the roots of our own rituals, our own spirituality, and our own relationship with death may be far, far older than we ever imagined. The Starmen did not just walk like us. It seems they may have mourned like us too. This is their most powerful and unsettling legacy, the oldest goodbye. Dating of the remains places Homo naledi between 335,000 and 236,000 years ago, a period known as the Middle Pleistocene. This means they were alive at the exact same time that the first members of our own species, Homo sapiens, were emerging elsewhere in Africa. For a time, we shared a continent, yet their lives were brutally difficult. The enamel on their teeth shows horizontal grooves, signs of developmental stress caused by regular, severe cycles of feast and famine. The region they lived in was likely harsh and unforgiving, and their small frames would have made the cold winters an exceptional challenge. For 100,000 years, this enigmatic species survived, a lost tribe of humanity with a unique and paradoxical solution to the puzzle of existence. Then, like so many other branches on our tangled family bush, they vanished. Their extinction is as mysterious as their origin. Perhaps they were unable to adapt to the region's volatile and changing climate. Perhaps they were outcompeted by the larger, more technologically advanced early modern humans who were beginning to spread across the land. We may never know for sure. Their place on our family tree remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in paleoanthropology. Are they an early primitive offshoot of the Homo genus that survived from millions of years in isolation? Or are they a sister species to us, descended from a more recent common ancestor? The bones cannot yet give us a final answer. Homo naledi remains an enigma, a ghost that haunts the edges of our own story. They are a profound and humbling reminder that our linear, triumphant narrative of evolution is an illusion. The past is a far stranger, more complex, and more mysterious place than we can imagine. The story of humanity is not a single well-lit path, but a dark and labyrinthine cave, filled with unwritten histories and lost relatives we are only just beginning to meet.